And good morning, all. Welcome to this learning event number one for the NJ ATAC Community of Practice. We're going to get started in a couple minutes. Thank you for joining today. We're just waiting for a couple other folks to get on, and we'll get started. Good morning, all. Again, for folks who just joined, we're going to get started probably about 2 to 3 minutes. Just waiting for some additional people to come off of other meetings. But again, thank you for joining us.
I don't know if it matters, but I just went into the other meeting that was in Microsoft Teams and nobody was there, which made me go back to the other email. So there were two invites. I don't know if anybody's in that other meeting.
Yeah, I know. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. And I know, yeah, we had difficulties for some reason with this invite today. It would not let us remove the Teams link. So we have
Okay.
folks monitoring that room to make sure that anyone
Okay.
who joins gets pushed to that. So yeah, thanks for yeah. We tried everything. We tried everything, and we know we probably inundated you with
All
invites and
right.
everything.
When you
So
joined,
sorry
did you
about that,
join
but
the system in the room or you just see you're just,
I just logged in.
okay, and you're using here, yeah. So what you want,
I just wanted to let you know because I sat there for a while and then I said, something's wrong.
okay, excellent. Okay, excellent. So yeah, we'll check that again. Yeah, all the other invites, updated to this WebEx room, but for some reason today's would not budge. All right, we'll get started in about 1 minute. So we have enough time for all. Yes, we'll have someone hop over right now to that team so we make sure direct anyone who's there. Oh, that's okay. All right, we're about 6 past the hour here, so let's begin. Welcome all. As I mentioned for folks who joined a little bit earlier, this is the NJ ATAC Community of Practice Learning Event number 1, titled "The Role of Community Colleges in Registered Apprenticeship, Sponsor and Partner." For those who don't know, I believe I've met most on the call. My name is Mark Genoa, a director in Jobs for the Future, working mostly out of the Center for Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning. So welcome all to this first learning event of this year-long community of practice. And I send my also welcome messages from Maria Heidkamp from the New Jersey Council of County Colleges. She was slated to join us and provide some opening remarks today, but unfortunately, she had a last-minute conflict that she had to do. So Maria sends her regards, her welcome, and again, thanks you all for joining us and participating in this community of practice. And quick kind of housekeeping. Again, I wanted to talk. I mentioned it at the beginning. Apologize for the confusion on the link today. We could not remove the Teams link and direct everyone to WebEx for some reason for this invite. So please, if you know folks that are in that Teams room, please direct them this way. We have someone monitoring that room to make sure they can get here. So again, thank you. So to begin, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Shamar at JFF, to take us through a walk of today and do some additional introductions. Shamar?
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first learning event. We have today, we're going to have Mark giving us a community of practice overview for some of those who had not had the opportunity to hear a little bit more about this community of practice. Then we'll have Adrienne Summers, the Executive Director of Apprenticeships of the American Association of Community Colleges. She'll be speaking from the perspective of community colleges' roles in registered apprenticeships, sponsors, and partnerships. Next, we'll have Melissa Richards of East Central College in Missouri. Melissa is the Apprenticeship and Business Training Program Coordinator. She's going to speak from the perspective of in practice. Then we'll have a Q&A discussion, and then finally we'll close with some next steps and reminders. Okay, so you've met Mark, and some of you have met me. I'm a senior manager here at JFF. I'm in the Baltimore, Maryland region. She, her, hers. I'm going to pass it over to our coaches who you'll meet. We have Brianne McDonough and Cassandra McGee.
Hi, everyone. I am Brianne McDonough. I'm with Jobs for the Future, a director, and I'm excited to be joining the project as a coach. And I'll be meeting with some of the sites. Looking forward to getting to know you over the next year or so. And I'll pass it to Cassandra to say hi as well.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I'm Cassandra McGee. I'm a director at JFF, and I will be serving alongside Brianne to coach sites. And so I look forward to working with you and to partner with you on your success.
Thank you. I'll hand it back over to Mark, where he'll give you that quick overview again about this community of practice.
Thank you. And before I get into it, now that we all did introductions of ourselves, can everyone that has joined us today put their name and what either college or workforce board they're coming from in the chat, if you will, so everyone can introduce themselves via chat and get to know everyone. So please do that while we go over the overview. So as we've said, this is the first session in the year-long community of practice. This community of practice is part of a larger effort by the New Jersey Council of County Colleges, labeled ATAC, the New Jersey Apprenticeship Technical Assistance Collaborative. Again, it's led by NJCC and supported by the New Jersey Department of Labor. And really the main goal of this project is to expand registered apprenticeship throughout the state of New Jersey while keeping a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion while expanding registered apprenticeship programs. We all know, over the past decade plus, the modern apprenticeship movement has been expanded. Ever since the largest at that time investment by the Obama administration through the Apprenticeship USA, American Apprenticeship Initiative, where a lot of the folks maybe on this call and a lot of folks across the country starting to get into the apprenticeship world. Ever since then, each federal administration, now in the third one federally, be it Democrat or Republican, has invested more and more money in this effort, and states have followed suit, invested more and more effort to expand their apprenticeship work. So this is all in line with the real goal to expand and utilize these programs in colleges and workforce boards across New Jersey. Some of the partners, obviously, Jobs for the Future is one of the partners in this project. And our main task is running this community of practice, which you'll hear more about in a little. But then there's also another partner on this project, the American Institutes for Research, or AAR, who you might have come across if you attended their Registered Apprenticeship 101 meeting or webinar before Thanksgiving break, and or other meetings and events they have done. And they're really focused on building the kind of the collaborative itself, be it the logo you see, the slide deck you see, as well as different materials and fundamental webinars that they, including that Registered Apprenticeship 101 that they put out. Again, we're charged here with running this year-long community of practice, and really wanted to, focus on community colleges and workforce boards as what we're calling focus sites as you're joining us today, because we feel that they can, and the NJCCC felt they could have the most impact in terms of growing apprenticeship, across the country. We know many of you are already involved in the apprenticeship space with programs up and running, doing well with apprentices, and looking to sustain and expand those programs. But on the other hand, we know some of you have really not gotten into this apprenticeship space. So we're really here to provide this overall knowledge and skills to help you in whatever you want to do, expand, sustain, or just get into the apprenticeship space. And then also have another layer beyond these monthly webinars we're doing in this one-on-one customized coaching to really get what you want to get out of this community of practice and set some goals for you to move forward in a year plus time. So I'll take you on a little trip about where we've been since we've kicked off this community of practice. And a lot of you know, because you've been a part of this. Our first step was to do focus site asset mapping. So really kind of see who would want to be part of this community of practice, what the needs were, and what each entity would want to gain out of that. So we conducted 8 total interviews. Again, focuses on community colleges and workforce boards across the country. And we ask questions, as you're familiar with, about trying to find out much about you as an organization, your local area, your experience in the apprenticeship space, any funding you use to support programs, and really, what do you feel are your strengths and challenges in terms of your current apprenticeship work and efforts to get out there. And what we found is the top registered apprenticeship activity and growth. It was in manufacturing. We found most of you had programs up and running in manufacturing and they were doing well. And there was also some kind of spattering of healthcare, IT, some very few hospitality programs, but there definitely was the goal to grow in those, not only grow in the manufacturing space, but grow in these other industries as well. We also heard an interest to expand to target population, really trying to figure out how to design programs that would encourage participation from traditionally underrepresented populations in the workforce in registered apprenticeship. And we heard loud and clear that youth was an interest to kind of get younger, work with your local CTE and other high schools to partner up with them to bring a youth apprenticeship aspect to your work. And also, we heard a need to really learn and connect from your peers within New Jersey and across the country. And that's why we have, a couple of folks joining us today that work in different areas of the country or all throughout the country to kind of share their expertise and their knowledge. We'll plan to do that through this year-long community of practice and really kind of to join this national conversation to see, make sure New Jersey is part of this conversation that's going on nationally. Some of the needs we heard, employer engagement, which usually comes at the top of the list in any type of work we do. But also we heard the need for employer engagement being industry specific, because we all know what, potentially could work in manufacturing doesn't necessarily translate, which could engage employers in apprenticeship in healthcare and IT. So we heard that. We heard program sustainability as a key area in need over this year-long community of practice, where a lot of your programs might be grant funded, and really kind of how to move, not necessarily away to that, but find a sustainable source so your program can run year after year. And really how to expand your programming and just kind of seeking out best practices. So throughout those 8 interviews, all 8 that were interviews were selected to participate in the community of practice, and who we found here now. And you can see a list of these entities with you joining us today with the leads they have for each entity, the main leads. Doesn't mean that other folks from staff won't be joining us today from those, but here's an idea of who's participating in this community of practice, because you can see some of your peers there with their leads listed on the screen. So one big part of the community of practice will be the monthly learning events. So it will be much like this. They'll go from, they'll be every month. We are obviously skipping December due to the holidays. But after that, they'll be every month, and we're going to alternate between these more, I would say traditional webinars where we're hosting various subject matter experts, best practices, kind of present with some chance for question and answer. But then on the other months, we'll do more peer-to-peer sessions where we'll get to dive in deeper, into topics, maybe something that came up during the webinar today or in future webinars, maybe kind of a reoccurring issue that coaches are hearing that they communicate to us. So, we have ideas for topics laid out, but we're flexible and this can be customized. So if we're hearing a need where we didn't think there was one, we can kind of, pivot at a notice and really kind of dive in deep topic. And that's the reason for these peer-to-peer sessions. It's really to kind of talk with your peers within New Jersey, with others across the country about matters that are affecting you directly, and really kind of how can we do group troubleshooting to figure them out. So they are going to be the reoccurring 4th Tuesday of every month through November of next year. And they will be hosted on the WebEx platform. And I know there was some issues with today's invite. For some reason, it would not let us remove the Teams invite. But for the future ones, it should be updated, and we kind of confirm that to this WebEx platform. So all learning events will be hosted here. And again, the topics are kind of addressing about what we heard during the asset management, and generally what knowledge that we like to include in these communities of practice. We're going to first take these first couple of sessions and really kind of take a look at registered apprenticeship from the community college perspective, because we know a majority of you focus sites are from community colleges. So we're going to start the first couple of sessions off of that, and then we're going to transition into the next ones. They're going to be in employer engagement, because we know that's a topic on top of everyone's mind. So we'll go that, and then we'll do a slight pivot, and then we'll kind of focus on registered apprenticeship from the local workforce board perspective for the next couple sessions after that. And then to take us to the back half of the year of this community of practice, we'll be focusing on such things as diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in registered apprenticeship program, sustainability, funding, expansion, and the policy that kind of dictates all this work. And, all throughout, we'll bring in subject matter experts and best practices, either they be within JFF or externally, like we have a couple folks today from across the U.S. and within New Jersey will join us at these sessions on a monthly basis. So this session, if you didn't notice upon entering, is being recorded. So all those recordings and any resources shared, like I shared some through email yesterday, as well as anything that comes up during this session, for now, they'll be posted on that website link as you see there. And we'll make sure, obviously, to share out this slide deck afterwards. Everyone has all the links they have during this. So please go to that website soon. And we'll post all the recordings and resources for these monthly learning events. So accompanying our monthly learning events, as you already met, Brianne and Cassandra, we'll provide each focus site with one-on-one customized coaching, really tailored to your needs. So each of you as a focus site will get assigned a coach, be it either Brianne or Cassandra, and you'll find out shortly on who that will be. And basically, you'll be meeting with these coaches at least over monthly calls, really at first to develop what we're calling an action plan with your goals during this year-long community of practice. So, what do you intend to gain and where do you want to be, at the end of this year-long community of practice? And really, the coach will work with you on those goals and help you achieve them with, obviously adjustments and troubleshooting and guidance along the way. Monthly coaching calls will start in January, right after the new year, after everyone's back from their holiday end of year breaks, and they'll continue monthly, as I said, through November of 2024. So look for that outreach from either myself or Shmar or coaches to really schedule those initial calls and set kind of a recurring time where you can work together. And obviously, we'll be in constant communication with the coaches. If anything comes up that we feel is a group need that we want to elevate up to one of a monthly learning events, we can do that. And myself and Shamar will be supporting the coaches along the way to provide that added layer of support. So we're excited to kind of kick off and really feel this will, make this community practice suited for you. So what, as you've already experienced, what else is going on? As I mentioned at the beginning, AIR is running more public webinars over the course of these next couple of months. As some of you I know attended, they did an overview of registered apprenticeship a couple of weeks ago, and that recording, you should have received that recording. If not, that will be posted on the site from the previous slide. And additionally, there's a couple more coming up over the next couple months. So these are webinars that are, open to the quote unquote general public, not necessarily solely for this community of practice, and really provide those fundamentals of, registered apprenticeship, including the model and design and employer engagement. So we encourage you to attend them to get kind of that baseline knowledge, and it would only supplement what you're learning within this community of practice, where we're taking a deeper dive in most of these subjects. So you'll receive notice about each of them. You should have received an invite for that December 7th one coming up, but there'll also be in this slide, there'll be a link to register if you're interested in attending that. And typically these, not to confuse everyone, but these will be hosted as the previous one on the Zoom platform, and that can be accessed after you register at the link that will be at the end of the slides. So, it's enough with the intros and overviews. I'm excited to start to dive deep into the topic of today. And as I mentioned, it's the role of community colleges in registered apprenticeship sponsor and partner. As I said at the beginning, the apprenticeship, modern apprenticeship movement has been growing ever since that initial investment. And this translates to community colleges as well. I've worked across the country with several community colleges, and they found a way to, almost reinvent some aspects of their workforce work to bring employers closer to them, to bring CBOs and other partners closer to their work, really as a sponsor, but also as a kind of a partner with other programs in this work. So I'm excited to have with us, first, it's Adrian Summers. Adrian is the Executive Director of Apprenticeships with the American Association of Community Colleges, or AACC. And Adrian oversees an $8 million ABA Category 4 grant to develop an electrical
How long
vehicle
should that
hub.
meeting be? It's
Well,
been well over.
folks, I'm hearing folks coming in. Can you mute if you're not talking? With that, thank you. Adrian's team is currently working with Tesla and Panasonic to build this hub and provide resources. And previously, she oversaw a cooperative agreement between AACC and the U.S. Department of Labor to expand community college apprenticeships valued at almost $20 million. Through that, AACC was charged with serving 16,000 apprentices over a 3-year period. And then prior to AACC, Adrian was on the ground as the apprenticeship director at Howard Community College and developed 9 occupations, which included IT, software development, biomedical engineering technician, construction management, HVAC, as well as electric occupations. Howard served more than 175 apprentices in 3 years and was a sponsor and RTI provider for 7 occupations and related instruction provider for HVAC and electric. So, Adrian brings that not only now national experience, but on the ground experience working at a college. And then after Adrian, we'll go to our what we're calling our in practice session, where you hear from a college on the ground. And that today we have Melissa Richards with us, who is the Apprenticeship and Business Training Coordinator in the Center for Workforce Development at East Central College in Union, Missouri. Melissa has been at East Central for 6+ years and manages the daily administration and operation of the college's registered apprenticeship, which currently includes 13 occupations with 30 employers and associated pre-apprenticeship programs. The work includes the handling of several federal and Missouri state grants and partnerships with employers, local workforce development boards, community-based organizations, and other apprenticeship stakeholders. So I'm glad to welcome first Adrian to here to present. Adrian?
Thank you, Mark, and welcome to everyone. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Adrienne Summers, and as Mark introduced me, I just want to give you some tidbits and some information from both the national experience that I've had, as well as the experience that I've had here at AACC and Howard Community College both. Do you want to advance the slide, Mark? Great. And then that's just information about my team. So next slide. And as Mark spoke, I did oversee an expanding community college apprenticeship initiative. It was a cooperative agreement with the United States Department of Labor valued at $19.9 million. And our task was to produce 16,000 apprentices. And as you notice, the timeline was July the 1st through 2019 through August the 30th of 2022. So this was a very interesting time with COVID, learned an awful lot, but the really cool thing is during that time period, our apprenticeships did not stop. They continued, so our outcome ended up with 20,000 apprentices, and that was 138% of our original goal, which was absolutely phenomenal because we're navigating a lot of different spaces. A lot of employers did not know which direction to go. However, they still needed to have tasks completed and workforce completed. So it was exciting to see the growth and the experience that was produced with the apprenticeship as a workforce development opportunity. Next slide. So during the ECHA project, AACC developed what is referred to as the Virtual Apprenticeship Network Toolkit. We refer to it as the VAN. It is an interactive web-based toolkit. It is available on the AACC website. And towards the end of my slides, I do have a page for resources. So if anyone would like to click on that, there's a lot of information for really everyone associated with apprenticeship. It is a guide. You can design, build, implement, expand, sustain, and evaluating a registered apprenticeship program at community colleges. So this is a really good resource tool to be used. It will also give you some resources, promising practices, some success stories from other community colleges, from our ECHA partners, as well as some external partners that we utilized. There's also some ECHA data. Bear in mind, though, this ECHA data finished last year. So through June of 2022 was the data that is provided as far as this is, project was concerned. The project sunsetted in August, so we have not continued with any of the data collection. But it's a really good source to be able to explore to see what colleges have developed what programs thus far through last year. Obviously, many of them have continued moving forward, developing other occupations. Next slide.
Hey, Adrian, before you proceed, we had a quick question from the chat. One was, what were the apprentices all registered in Rapids that you mentioned?
Yes, when I talk about apprenticeship, these are all registered apprenticeship, and they were registered through Rapids or the state database that is utilized by that particular state. And the roles of the 20,000 apprentices, if you just give me a couple of minutes, I'm going to actually highlight some of the data specifically from this project. So as you notice, the ECHA van toolkit is basically developed as a honeycomb. So there's a lot of different themes of successful practice, how to implement a registered apprenticeship program. And this is very good for community colleges and people who are entering the apprenticeship space, because we do give a lot of overview and introduction, almost like an apprenticeship 101 that would be very helpful for new staff and people that do not have a lot of experience in the apprenticeship space. We have information how to do some effective messaging on the value of registered apprenticeship programs. There's a lot of opportunities to talk to employers, potential employers, about the values and how do you sell them the opportunity to participate in a registered apprenticeship program. How to manage and sustain a registered apprenticeship program. There are so many dollars that are available for so many different opportunities in the apprenticeship space. But you have to remember that in the end, you do need to develop some sustainable practices to be able to continue moving forward and developing new occupations if you do not have funding sources available to you. I don't see the funding sources going away anytime soon, but it's definitely something to look at what the sustainability of your different occupations are. And are you truly serving the needs of your community and what is being offered? You know, your faculty, your staff. Again, another key issue has always been, do you have enough faculty that can actually teach some of the occupations, especially in some of the new occupations that are cutting edge. So that's also something to really be aware of. Expanding community college, we do have some data points in there. Again, that data goes through June of 2022. And then we typically try to showcase different projects on a quarterly basis with our partners during the life of this particular project. Next slide. So again, talking about implementing a registered apprenticeship program, I just want to give you a couple of different kind of success stories that we've done implementing. So when I was at Howard Community College, literally apprenticeship was not something that the college was doing prior to me being tasked with developing apprenticeship. And literally starting from ground zero, where we literally had an email from a company who wanted to utilize the college as a related instruction provider. And that was our first occupation, was with a trade association in the HVAC space. So Howard Community College delivered the related instruction for this occupation. And then from there, we started exploring and really developing the protocols for being a sponsor as well as the related instruction provider. So we did have some grant source funding, and we developed our first one, which was the construction management apprenticeship program, where we were literally the sponsor as well as the related instruction provider, which was a really cool project. We developed an advisory board because, again, it's really key to involve your partners and the other employers who are going to be part of your occupation and the curriculum that you're developing. Howard Community College had a construction management certificate program as well as an AA degree. We went the route of the certificate program and expanded that slightly to incorporate a few extra things that were needed for the related instruction. And when I say extra things, they all needed their OSHA 30 and they all needed a CPR course, first aid. So they were courses that were actually on the non-credit side with the CPR and the OSHA 30. However, the rest of the apprenticeship was truly a credit-based apprenticeship program. And as a credit-based apprenticeship program, they ended up with 32 academic credits at the end of their apprenticeship. So they were a little more than halfway through their AA degree at the conclusion of the apprenticeship, earning the academic credit for that. And then we continued on at Howard Community College, ended up with national partner AT&T to develop 4 occupations in the IT sector. Worked with a health IT company to develop a software development apprenticeship, and then worked with some area hospitals to develop a biomedical engineering technology. Again, the employers who were part of our apprenticeships, we were meeting a community need, and this was really imperative to develop those apprenticeship relationships throughout the program for whatever the occupation series were. They were like, for example, with AT&T, we actually had 4 occupations in the IT space, and AT&T was our main partner, and they actually brought along 2 of their sub-partners who were part of a government contract. So that was a really cool experience working with all of them. How many students does Howard Community College serve annually? I did 175 students in a little less than 3 years. The occupations have increased. I believe they've added 4 more occupations since I left 2 years ago. Annually, I believe there are approximately 30,000 students, about 15,000 on the non-credit and 15,000 on the credit side. The apprenticeships that were developed at Howard during my tenure, 9 of them were on the credit side. 2 of them were non-credit, the electric and the HVAC. I was actually housed on the non-credit side. So that's another key piece, is to really develop those relationships. We worked out how the FTEs were going to be handled, and we really worked out the relationships between the credit and the non-credit, because ultimately, as an institution, your task is to serve students, and it really doesn't matter if it's on the non-credit or the credit. It's the objective was to serve students. But I had some great partners throughout the various departments at Howard Community College, because as we're developing programs and occupations, truly every single department at the college has a stake in apprenticeships, especially if you're a college, community college that is beginning your journey. It's really important to utilize some conversations with financial aid, with your advising team, with your IT, and even developing relationships with your foundation, because the foundation office typically has relationships with many of the community businesses and organizations that you're trying to develop some partnerships with. Full-time enrollment. Oh, sorry. Thank you for who explained the FTE. So full-time enrollment. So next slide, Mark. So implementing a registered apprenticeship program, so establishing a registered program at a college in the state of Maryland, which is a little different than New Jersey. We are a state apprenticeship office, which means all of the occupations where we became a sponsor, we literally had to have it approved through the Maryland Apprenticeship Training Council, which is referred to as MATC. And they met every other month. So all of our paperwork had to be submitted prior for approval. And it is still recognized from the national office, but it did also need to go through the state office of Maryland's apprenticeship. Other things to establish is, again, I've mentioned the advisory boards. That is something that's really important to have that community engagement. And then one of the options that I did after Howard was approved for their various occupations, I would hold what I refer to as a wider college meeting. And I would invite all of the different departments at the community college to hear the new occupations that we had approved. And really, I would ask, this is what we've submitted, this is what has been approved. What are we missing? What else do we need to think about? And there's always many things that need to be, you need to make sure that you're serving your students holistically. For example, even though the employers were paying the tuition fees and books for the students in the registered apprenticeship programs, they're still eligible for financial aid, and financial aid can be utilized even for housing. So that is something that we still had to be careful of all our dates and to comply with everything with um, the needs of the college. So somebody did ask the credits, 12 credits or more a semester. Typically, the apprenticeship students who were involved in all of the registered apprenticeship were working the 2,000 hours per year, which is equivalent to full time. And then they would attend typically 2 to 3 courses each semester. It just depended on how the courses fell. The employers were all in agreement as far as when they were offered. We did have the input. So, for example, at Howard with the construction management apprenticeship program, the employers were really concerned that the student might be at a job site, and for them to leave at 3 or 4 o'clock in order to be at a 5 o'clock class in the evening could be a little disruptive to the work schedules. So one of the things that was suggested was that the students would actually go to Howard Community College all day on a Friday and take their 2 classes, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. So they met once a week. HVAC was 2 nights a week during the evening. Our IT programs typically were in the evening 1 to 2 days a week. Sometimes they were also on Saturdays, and it really depended on what was available. One of the things I would recommend, because one of the things that we hear all of the time, and one of a great problem that's facing many community colleges, is not enough instructors to teach the various courses. One of the things that we started doing when I was at Howard, and I recommended this across the board nationally because it is a huge problem, is as you have employers that are coming to you asking to develop the apprenticeship program or being part of the program, there comes a point when you only have so many instructors. So negotiate with those companies for potentially basically a trade of providing an instructor. And there's many ways that you can do that. I always say start with asking the employer, either if you have an instructor who would be willing to do this in the evening as an adjunct. I always explain that typically there has to be some money that is exchanged between the college and whoever the instructor is, whether it is wages, whether it's a stipend, but there does have to be some money exchanged. It's up to the employer if they want to be able to provide someone from their company to be an instructor. Potentially there's some opportunity for some release time or some other thing that is available that can be creatively worked out between the institution, the community college, as well as the employer. So that is one aspect to really negotiate for the instructor, because they are the subject matter experts, especially whatever technical training and whatever technical occupation. But that's a really good start to look at those opportunities within the employer. Trying to watch the questions too, Mark. So
Yeah, Adrian, do you want to just we probably have to, looking at time, save some of these for the end. So you just want to proceed and we'll address them
sure,
at the end.
we'll do that. So, and obviously some other things in the honeycomb as part of implementing a registered apprenticeship program, assessing the college readiness, whether your college wants to be a sponsor, intermediary, or related instruction provider. It can be 1, 2, or all 3 of those. Looking at registering and actually calculating the return on the investment of the college. That is all very important because this is not intended to be something that you're doing for free, but it is something that you do need to make sure that you're covering your costs in order to continue and be sustainable in the end. Next slide. So just another page on the Virtual Apprenticeship Network with ECA data. And I believe the next slide is I can go into a little bit more of that data on the ECA project. Yes, so the ECA project, 22,000 apprentices. We had 633 occupations that were represented. Advanced manufacturing and construction, approximately 72% of the 22,000 registered apprentices were in the advanced manufacturing and construction sector. The rest, the balance of about 18%, was all other occupations with transportation, finance and business, healthcare, IT, telecommunications, agriculture, and energy. And again, remember, this is ended in 2022. I would suspect energy has increased, as well as the healthcare has definitely increased, and IT has definitely increased in community colleges offering those non-traditional occupations. There were 106 total community colleges that were part of this project. 31 colleges actually were the sponsoring the registered apprenticeship, 8 global industry partners, and then we did have some consortium. There were 8 college consortiums. So for example, Indiana is a state-run system, as well as Kentucky is a state system. So they were a consortium with several other colleges. Did have some diversity. I will say that community colleges typically represents about 30%, and this would be community colleges as a whole from AACC's perspective. There's approximately 1,038 community colleges that are represented as a membership organization. Of that, 30% of the students who attend community college are first generation students. And I feel that that's a really significant point to point out, because these are students who really have nothing to really a foundation. So their parents did not go to college. They are the first generation. And that's pretty exciting that they are pursuing that. But again, they don't know what they don't know. So it's sometimes really important to offer those support services for that. Next slide. So currently with our electric vehicle, it is an $8 million ABA Category 4 grant from the United States Department of Labor. We are working with Tesla and Panasonic. There are 2 large partners. There's other organizations that AACC typically works with. And in this case, for this particular project, the Advanced CTE, Association for Career and Technical Ed, Feeding America, National Association of Workforce Boards, the SHRM Foundation, and SMF Writing Solutions to help us with some sustainability going forward. The EV hub obviously is a sector that is evolving and growing and changing every single day. The idea behind this is to develop resources for community colleges to really work with various occupations, typically more in advanced manufacturing. Although we are also working with the charging stations. So there is that aspect. And then we are working more with municipality exploration of light duty trucks, the electric buses, and other things. So it's not all strictly a personal vehicle. So hopefully there will be some resources that we've been able to connect with many different organizations that we're working on putting something together that will be open and be able to be utilized throughout community colleges across the US. We will be working with approximately 5 community colleges with this project. This project is just launching. So as we determine the more information, that'll be available on our website. Next slide. Just put together some resources that we utilized here at AACC. I've utilized some of these resources when I was at Howard. They're just great aspects to really build up knowledge for new employees, for someone who is maybe not new to the community college, but maybe new to apprenticeship. So a lot of different aspects that's really helpful in the apprenticeship space. Next slide. It's questions. Oops. Oh, questions for me. So I want to.
Thank you, Adrian. And I know there was definitely some questions in the chat. So if you want to, you have a couple minutes to address them.
Okay.
So the first one was, were you able to work with local workforce boards to utilize any WIOA Title I funding?
Yes, we did. And one thing that I did fail to mention, when I was engaging with employers and bringing them in to really expose them and introduce them to apprenticeship, I would have what I refer to as network breakfast. And we invited both workforce boards, our Maryland Department of Labor. We invited our community organizations. So that would be our Chamber of Commerce, our Economic and Development, our County Executive Office. We felt it was really important to have all of the people who could really help propel apprenticeship in the same room to be able to answer questions. And definitely our workforce board was able to explain to the employers what various tax incentives, what various funding was available, how to use the WIOA dollars, because that is something that the students could also utilize as well. So that was just one aspect that I did to really engage the community. Was RTI implemented in a cohort-based manner? Some of our occupations were a cohort-based manner. Some of the occupations were done in an dually enrolled class, meaning there was an open classroom, open enrollment, as well as apprenticeship enrollment in the same course. So we used existing courses that were already offered in the open schedule and filled them in with apprenticeship students. How did we get the employers to pay for the RTI? That was just something that we really laid out, explained to them. I would always bring in the Maryland Department of Labor office. They would explain the various taxes or tax incentives, the various funding opportunities. So truly it was, yes, this is what the employer is going to pay for the students. But on the other hand, these are some of the options that you're going to have to recoup some of that money. I always encouraged my employers to also do an employment contract with the students. For example, AT&T actually had an employment contract. The apprenticeship was approximately 2 years in length. They would ask for an additional 2 years of service from the apprentice. And then at that point in time, they were free to go. If a student dropped in the middle, they would literally ask for the student to repay the tuition that had been spent to that point. How do you customize the RTI in the manner you've explained? The RTI, we would really ask the employers for their job listings, their job postings. Once we had that, we could literally walk through the various courses based on the job postings. And we really didn't necessarily always customize. We would go through and bundle courses. So these would be existing courses that were already being offered at the college. And we would try to figure out what courses are going to work to meet these needs with the employer engaged in these conversations. So we really didn't necessarily customize. We utilized what was already there. And did you get buy-in for the academic leadership? Absolutely, we did. Because again, the selling point was this is how the classes would be full. We had a guaranteed registered apprenticeship student that would be there for 1, 2, 3, or 4 years, depending on which occupation they chose. That was a guarantee. Open enrollment is literally not a guarantee from semester to semester because life happens, things happen. But definitely the apprenticeship students did receive, check-ins. We had the mentors that were involved from the employer. We also had another set of advisors that we utilized in the apprenticeship department that would check in with the students. So there were a lot of opportunities to make sure that the students were supported and what they needed to have. Are there additional questions that I missed, Mark?
No, I think you covered them all. And, if anyone thinks of a question while Melissa
Pop
is
it in.
speaking
Yep.
next, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll have time at the end to address them. So thank you.
Thanks
Thank you
very
so
much.
much, Adrian.
Yes.
Thank you. Now I would like to turn it to Melissa Richards at East Central College in Union, Missouri. Melissa?
Hello, everyone. So yes, I'm Melissa Richards. I've been with East Central College for a little over 6 years now. I am their apprenticeship and business training coordinator. So I'm here to kind of tell you about our journey through apprenticeship programs kind of over the last 4 to 5 years. So if you'll advance slides. All right, so we'll start kind of where we all began. ECC was awarded funds from a grant called Apprenticeship USA back in 2017. And this was about 4 months prior to me actually coming on at the college. So my boss at the time, he used these funds to create our first registered apprenticeship with DOL and our Missouri Office of Apprenticeship. We are a Office of Apprenticeship state. We started with the 3 occupations that you see listed. And for this program, ECC was the sponsor and the RTI provider. Choosing to be the sponsor is the main reason our apprenticeship programs actually exist. The companies followed our DOL registered apprenticeship standards. Our team was responsible for tracking their credentials, their training hours, and their OJT hours. The company we worked with, they did invest $250,000 of their own money in training equipment so that they could have our industrial engineering technology program actually taught on site at their facility. They did not want people traveling back and forth. This is not the norm. I wish it was. I wish we could say this always happens, but this was really an exception to have a company invest that much of their own money in just buying training equipment, which again, they were going to use in the future. It wasn't going to be just for this project. So for the industrial maintenance technician program, we had a high of 25 apprentices at one time and a low of 14 in manufacturing, just kind of ebbed and flowed. So 3 years after it started, we completed our first 16 apprentices. So again, this was a 3-year investment in the development of their maintenance department. So I would say that was a huge win for us to that be kind of our first experience. In the meantime, there were still Apprenticeship USA funds available. So working with the same company seemed like a great idea. So we also started programs, apprenticeship programs in logistics. First was an entry-level associate program. Again, all seemed to start well, but there was a change in management. There was a buyout that happened, and the program oversight, it all changed. And it took a turn very quick. So we ended up completing 0 associates. Most of them did receive an industry recognized credential from an organization called MSSC, but we never even really got started on the technician program, which was the second level of training. The company, what happened was the company required that all warehouse and material handling associates be in this program. Their intentions were really good at the time. They had issues in both of those departments. So they wanted everyone to go through the training, create a baseline of knowledge and operating processes, kind of a no employee left behind approach. However, registered apprenticeship programs should be voluntary versus forced. This is what could happen if you mandate employees to be involved in a training program versus getting their input and their buy-in first. Registered programs can be very company specific, as Adrian mentioned, and they are very flexible. So I encourage you to take the time to create something that is right for your employer partners. There are DOL standards, of course, you have to follow, but the related training is very customizable. Okay, next slide.
And Melissa, a quick question. When you said FTEs for the company, is that full-time employees?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So moving on, after our Apprenticeship USA grant ended, we then applied and received over $200,000 from a grant that was called MORAP, Missouri Registered Apprenticeship Program, from the Department of Workforce Development in our state. This grant was great because it did not limit a particular industry that we had to focus on apprenticeships. It was wide open. But all participants receiving the funding had to be registered with DOL, had to be in Rapids. So this kind of forced companies to register their training programs with DOL if they want to participate. So we had a little bit of leverage there. We started gaining traction, and I'll be honest, a lot of it was due to the money helping pay for tuition, fees, books, a lot of seed money. But these funds, these funded the 4 occupations that you see listed on the slide, and we were able to establish, and 2 of those are still active today with apprentices in them. Other ones, they either had people complete, so they just don't have people in them. Some of them did not complete. So during the time we received these funds, our local workforce board director had actually reached out, introducing that they had a pot of funding called Incumbent Worker Training Funds, and it came from their adult and dislocated worker budget. So this program has been around for 30 plus years, and it was the first time we had ever heard about it. The director had funding to help companies either skill up employees to help them retain employment, or you had to use the money to help prevent a layoff. So we worked hard to market the program. Again, no one ever heard of it, including us. So you had to sell something new to an employer, to our local workforce. We had our first 2 applicants in June of 2018. So it took us about 2 months to really convince anybody to even give it a chance. And it was for an introduction to MIG welding, a non-credit class we hosted over the summer. The problem that the Workforce Development Board and our job centers had is they typically serve individuals. However, we provide services to businesses and work very little with individuals. So this was just kind of a beginning for our partnership. All right, next slide. So continuing with our workforce board, to get this relationship really off the ground, we set up a meeting with them, the closest ones that were in our area. We met with them in person. We went through all of their processes and paperwork associated with the Incumbent Worker Program. We met with their staff members that we'd be working with. We came to find out not only did they lack the business connections, but they also were strapped for manpower. And this program required a little bit of that, especially when trying to sell sort of a government product to a small rural company is a little difficult. They don't want, they're afraid of what oversight might come with it, what auditing might come with it, that people are out to get them. Afterwards, our vice president had a really great idea, and we created a quarterly Zoom meeting. This was before Zoom was actually cool. And to discuss these program offerings, what programs that we did, what changes that they had coming about so we could be aware of it. And we did this for about 1 year to really get us in connection. This built trust between our organizations. And it's not that we didn't have trust before, we just didn't have a workforce relationship before. By our community college really showing up on site to the facilities and meeting with them for updates, we were able to show them that what we had to offer in the areas of training and development. And at that time, especially, was the expansion of DOL registered apprenticeships in Missouri and just in the US in general, and how we could support that together. As I mentioned, the job centers had the same connections did not have the same connections to businesses that we had. They were understaffed. However, they did have access to all these state funds that I'm sure many of you know about that we could not access. And those funds could support anybody, a working individual, through just about anything they needed. In addition, they had employees that knew, WIOA and our MoJobs platform inside and out. Their programs can be a bit much if you didn't know. Administratively, it can be a lot of case management, just a lot of time and hours there. So East Central College, again, we did not have direct access to any of these funds. It kind of forced our hand. We had to work with our workforce board in order to obtain these funds. So before, I would just refer people to the job center. I really didn't want to dip my toes in that pool because, again, it was a lot of administrative work. There's a lot of in and outs of rules and regulations. However, our school had the client connections. We had 1 to 2 employees designated here at ECC at times to designate with assisting companies to get them to the incumbent worker application process or getting them through it. We scheduled all the trainings these companies needed. We closed out all the projects with the state. So we handled all that administrative hand holding. They didn't have time to do it. The company didn't want to do it. So we said, sure, we'll do it if we can have access to your pots of money in these programs in your areas of expertise. So we created a partnership and making it, again, a good faith effort to work together to create kind of a win-win situation for our communities and those we were able to train. As you know, many state, especially in the workforce boards, they have a tendency to change processes. And unless you can go through all the legal jargons, sometimes on their website, you have no idea of these changes. Therefore, our job centers excelled at keeping us up to date on process changes through those quarterly meetings or in between. It usually led to a lot of change in the paperwork process. However, our team chose, again, it was a choice. We chose to adapt to keep up the partnership. Currently, our community college is the largest utilizer of these funds by far in the state of Missouri. There are only 1 or 2 other community colleges that access these funds and partner with their local workforce boards. The funds continue to help our current and upcoming apprenticeship programs, especially as some of those federal dollars started to expire. So in Missouri, the local workforce boards also have local authority, which can make it a bit of a challenge. So again, I'm telling you the good along with some of the things that we're struggling with because I want you to, this is just reality of what we've experienced. So with that local authority, directors can change their budget. They can change their direction of operation they may want to go. So we are really challenging them to help us understand what is their mission and what is their goal in upskilling Missourians. Is it to train as many employees as possible, spend money as quickly, meet all their check boxes they need to do? Or instead, is there really a quality of training that we want to uphold? And what industries do we really want to focus those dollars on the most? Our department has been guilty of it too, that we get a grant, we got to meet all these guidelines and all these deadlines. Do we do that really quick or where's the quality come in? Or so sometimes you can get lost in meeting those quotas versus putting your mission and quality first. So just something that we've struggled with, again, with our local workforce boards that I hope you kind of work through some of those. All right, next slide. So during this time in Missouri, the governor had, our new governor had 2 initiatives, workforce development and infrastructure. So DOL registered apprenticeships were gaining popularity. You couldn't go to a conference or a summit without hearing more about it across the state. This led us to being a part of a consortium grant comprised of 10 Missouri community colleges. There's 12 in Missouri. And together we were awarded $12 million in federal funds from DOL to start, expand, and nationally scale only advanced manufacturing apprenticeships programs. This was my first experience working with a consortium, and I will be honest, it's the most painful, but also the most rewarding experience that I've gone through. I have been able to work alongside workforce directors and apprenticeship coordinators for the past 4.5 years now, and we have done some amazing things together. This program allowed our college to continue expanding apprenticeship programs. At first, we worked with companies that had already had active DOL apprentices and just asked if they want to put more in. So we kind of hit that low-hanging fruit first, which was fine. But again, that's going to run its course. So after that, we had to put in a little more effort. We had to find new partners. We had to actually promote apprenticeships to the area a little more. We used social media, billboards, mailers, mass mailings, flyers, and we hosted a couple of apprenticeship events at our campus. Those are things that you'll likely have to do. It took about 2 years of that we were pretty consistent with it to the point we could kind of lay off of it. We had a really good thing going, saw a lot of steady growth. And just like Adrian mentioned, then we hit COVID, and things went really chaotic at that point. So COVID impacted our schools, as we know, but they impacted the workforce, I would say, even more. Companies were shutting down. Some were going under. Many having to do layoffs or shared work programs. We had to work with them through those. But luckily, many of our local manufacturers were considered essential, and they had to remain open. Again, a limited workforce, but they remained open. But the companies were not worried about training, did not care about upskilling, did not care about cultural development anymore. All they were worried about is keeping their doors open, retaining what workforce they had, and handling what production needs that came through. I would say this lasted about a year and a half. So the good thing for our college, we already had registered apprenticeship programs established that were from 2 to 3 years in OJT requirements, but many of the colleges in that consortium did not. So their numbers came to a halt, as well as any development they had came to a complete halt. So when we were dealing with COVID, our schools really, we met monthly, or we still do. Our schools are running out of allotted funds at this point because we were in year 3 out of our potentially 4-year grant. So everything was going virtual, but as you know, skilled trade programs are really preferred to be in person and hands-on lab. So how do we accommodate that? We were trying to consolidate resources. We applied for new state funds if we could. We did receive another state fund called Missouri Apprenticeship Ready, which we'll talk about. That was for pre-apprenticeship funds or programs at the time. And we relied heavily on the incumbent worker program through our workforce boards to get us through this time. It was really all hands on deck. We pulled all the hats or all the tricks out of our hat that we could. All right, next. So we go into round 3, which was, again, 5 years kind of later. So again, COVID brought about this chaos, but it also brought along change and creativity to keep everyone in business. DOL also changed. DOL doesn't typically change, however, they did, and they allowed us to use funds that of that 12 million for pre-apprenticeships to be funded and count towards our overall headcount of people served. I also mentioned on the last slide we received what I call MAR funding, MAR. It stands for Missouri Apprenticeship Ready Funds, and we received $75,000 in that, and that was for pre-apprenticeship training programs only. We had no idea what to do with a pre-apprenticeship program. But we shifted gears and we had our first pre-apprenticeship program. It focused on entry-level skills that new hires lack. And we worked with our employers to find what those are versus just assuming. So we focused on shop math, computer skills, concepts of lean manufacturing, quality, team building, and communications. We also did things like units of measure and identifying hand tools. Once we found success in that, we offered additional apprenticeship programs in the areas of manufacturing and healthcare. We built off what we were able to do there. And I'll get to why I'm mentioning healthcare later on. Besides pre-apprenticeships, I went back to the drawing board to find other eligible occupations within our consortium grant that we could really focus on, because everything we did was 2 to 3 years and on our OJT requirements. So 2 to 3 years, that was just get the OJT in. That was the easy part. Getting the RTI in, working full time plus overtime. Like Adrian said, our students were taking classes, I would say 1 to 2 classes, sometimes 3 a semester. So they're sometimes in this program for anywhere from 4 to 5 years because that RTI, they're slow and steady doing it. But I'll promise you, those are your A and B apprentices. The ones that are doing full time, I've never had, all my full time apprentices are C and D students. So just something to keep in mind about it. It's not always how fast you go. It's the quality of which you're completing these. However, so my eye landed on new occupations. We had frontline leader, industrial production manager, and first line supervisor of production workers. These occupations were never talked about. I didn't even know they existed, but they were listed on our eligibility. I didn't help write the grant, so not something I paid attention to at the time. But the whole time, all these colleges were focusing on these skilled trade programs, like maintenance, machining, welding. We were the first school in the consortium to switch directions very quickly. Because if you think about it, most manufacturers have some people in maintenance, maybe a machining department, maybe some welders, but every manufacturer has people in leadership roles. So we worked with a well-known consultant in the area that had a 10-person team of consultants to take on projects that we brought to them. There was no wait list that we had to worry about for that. Together, the consultants and myself, we visited with area manufacturers. We pitched the program, and we found a lot of success. She was able to talk very intelligently about her programs. I was able to talk very intelligently about the apprenticeship programs and how we can make them work together. So before, we were getting 1 to 5 employees at a facility to register for a DOL program. Now with these leadership occupations, we were getting cohorts of 10 to 20 plus people registered. And then we were introduced to JFF who was a DOL intermediary. I had no idea what that meant. We had never heard of such things before. So we decided to pick up the phone and give it a whirl. Again, all these funds are running out very quickly. You never know what state and federal funds are going to come through. So we said, why not? With them, we had a trophy manufacturer whose workforce is comprised mainly of women. So we did a leadership apprenticeship program with them. There was 23 total, but 21 of the 23 apprentices were women, which is this was highly unusual, especially in our very rural area that we live in. So at this time, we were running low on our MOAMP funds and things like that. So we were looking for a new resource out there and a new partner. So JFF awarded ECC $30,000 to support our grant program. And we haven't even really told the company a whole lot about it, but we were happy to announce for the first time that 21 out of those 23 apprentices at that company have recently completed their DOL apprenticeship program. So that was exciting news to get. They completed in October. So we were working to find these funds to build these partnerships, and this made it possible to really help sustain some of these apprenticeships. So sustainability, I realized we hit sustainability year 3 of our MOAMP grant. And the reason why was this was a 4-year grant. It got extended to a 5th year, but we knew we had funds for 4 years. We ran out of money completely in year 3, at the end of year 3. So now I have to go back to all my employer partners and let them know, sorry, we have no money left that we thought we might have. I thought that was going to go down the hill really quickly because for the past 3 to 4 years, we had funded almost 100%, again, tuition, fees, books, everything as this seed money to really get us up and running and stay there. So this is the first time companies did not have access to money. We were ripping off the Band-Aid, as you would say. So August 2021 came around. We had no money. We have all these credit students in these classes. Sometimes we made up more than 40% of a program. So it was kind of scary. I'm worried about everybody dropping. No students are going to return. What's going to happen? I was shocked. And I was very proud that we did not lose one apprentice starting that semester. Not one. Those companies picked up the bill 100%, didn't whine, cry, or scream about it. And those students are still coming here today. So that was when I knew, wow, from April of 2017 to August of 2021, we have finally figured it out. Something is working and we hit sustainability. So that was a really exciting moment for us. All right, next slide. So where are we now? So presently, so thanks to the state and various types of funding from DOL apprenticeship funds from Missouri and DOL and intermediaries like JFF, we have 30 employer partners, over 13 DOL occupations. We plan to register 2 new occupations this month, this year yet, so this month. We have completed 95 apprentices and we have 59 active apprentices right now. We have trained over 450 people in pre-apprenticeship programs. So not only did all these funds help expand manufacturing apprenticeships, but they also made it possible for our school to register healthcare occupations as well, which we see as a huge area of growth in that arena. Lastly, we've had Missouri employers that have facilities in other states. So maybe they're really local in our service region, but they have another facility in a different state, and those states and those facilities are actually adopting some of our training modules and implementing them. So now we've reached what DOL required as national expansion. So 6 years ago, I could barely spell the word apprentice. And now we are changing people's lives and making an economic impact in Missouri. So, and due to the low employment rates and the declining birth rates, which I'm sure you all hear about all the time, I've had to create new slogans, and mine is that we cannot create new people to grow your workforce, but we can train the ones that you have. And apprenticeships have been a proven way to do that by creating partnerships along the way that will benefit you and your communities in your abilities to meet your mission and your goals for your programs. And I think the last slide, these were just themes and takeaways that came about these last 4 or 5 years that I've had to grow into experiences, learn new things, meet new people. But it's been a great journey for us.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Melissa, for sharing that great information. We did have some questions for you in the chat, and we'll spend the last about 9-10 minutes here addressing questions. So if while we're addressing these questions, if anyone else has questions as we're speaking, please put them in the chat. So Melissa, first question, how did you manage awarding credit for apprenticeship experiences?
So again, most of our apprentices are college credit students in our normal college credit program. So they're an essential college student. You know, there's not really anything exceptional that they've had to do or that we've had to do. They enroll in our normal classes that we have. They're a part of with our regular students who are non-apprentices. So that's been, it's by far the easiest way to do it. I know I'm not on the credit side of the house. I know we do have the ability to award people college credits based on their experience. I don't think we're in the business of doing that a whole lot. But again, most of ours, we're just in our college programs that we already offer.
Excellent. Too. And Adrian, too, feel free if you want to kind of add any additional information for that question. It was on awarding credit for apprenticeship experiences.
So most of our programs were on the credit side. So again, they were already in the credit space. One of the things that Howard Community College was looking at was the non-credit students. So for the HVAC and the electric students, are there any articulation agreements or articulated credit that they could be awarded because they have been attending for typically 4 years at the college? And if so, it would probably be around 20 to 24 academic credits. So that's just something, there's a lot of different avenues to award credit. So it's just something to explore.
Excellent. Thank you. The next question was about how did you manage and / cover content? Not sure. Lisa, do you want to come off mute and explain that question?
Can expand on that.
Okay, Lisa, I see you're still muted. Oh, there you go.
No, I'm here.
So can you expand on your question about how do you manage cover content that you posted in the chat?
Yeah, I'm asking this question on behalf of our Vice President of Academic Affairs. Is the course content, is any course content covered in the apprenticeship experience?
I guess I think that the question I get. Thank you, Lisa. And the question relates to is any I guess how does the course content apply to when the apprentice is on the work site?
Oh, okay. So yeah, and that's the glory thing about apprenticeships, because you're working while you're, earn and learn, working while you're learning. So our apprenticeships, obviously we highly recommend taking classes in a specific order for a good reason. We want you to set you up for success, not failure. So we would really identify what those individuals are doing at their current job and what's going to be the best fit classes and the best pathway for them to take while they're at our community college, especially in those credit classes. We want them to be learning something here that they can apply at their job. So that's really working with that individual and or their HR, or if you can, I would go to their supervisor or plant manager, again, who's going to maybe be that mentor for them and work through some of those scenarios the best you can. we don't have a great partnership with everybody's supervisor by any means. Some individuals are very independent and know what they want and what classes they want to take, and they're ready to go. Other ones need a little bit more hand holding and need maybe a little bit more support from their employer to help them navigate through what the employer wants to see out of them. If the students are a little bit more nervous coming back to college or school. But yeah, we really try to focus on making sure they're taking classes that they can apply the skills when they get off of out of the class back into their normal job. And anytime we do a success story or success video, that's probably the number one thing that comes up is that I love the program because I could apply what I'm learning at school to my day to day, not only at work, but also in my home life, things that were transferable skills in my life. So that's typically something that goes in hand pretty easily for us.
And Melissa, was there any communication between, the instructors of these courses and the employer directly, or is it through like other individuals that are managing the program like you?
So a little bit of both. We bring the whole team to the table, and we started doing that several years ago. I used to be the middleman trying to talk for everybody, and I said, forget it. This isn't working. My industrial engineering technology teacher can talk shop jargon and terminology to the plant manager, and I can step out of the way. So anytime I go to a meeting that involves an apprenticeship program and the development of one, I'll be honest, the employer doesn't always know what they're looking for. Well, we need guys or girls in electrical and in PLC and XYZ, but they don't have a pathway lined out by any means. They're just trying to fill in the gaps the best they can and as quick as they can. So we try to take that and say, that's great. But if you would actually invest in this person for 2 to 3 years, here's the individual you're going to get on the other side versus just plugging in these random classes or taking an online class, again, just to kind of check that box that you did training. So I bring my faculty or whatever, even if it's a contracted employee, kind of like the leadership I talked about, I bring them with me to those meetings to have those more manufacturing discussions that maybe I'm just not the best fit for.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. And I think we have probably time for one last question, and I'm seeing in the chat. Was there a course to represent the apprenticeship hands-on hours?
So was there a course? I'm trying to find that question.
I think maybe that's the related instruction.
Correct. Yeah.
Maybe.
So anytime, yeah, our related instruction is all of our hands-on. So again, all of our manufacturing type of classes are typically lecture lab, or they're heavy in lab because they want that hands-on training. If it's anything in a leadership type program, again, our leadership programs are not offered online, they're in person. So all that RTI came through individuals having to sit in a class, go to focus groups, go to meetings, go to cohort type settings. In our leadership, there was, work that they had to do inside of like an LMS system, but I said everything is all of our RTIs is where that would typically be captured.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much. And I think that's all the time we have for questions. But, of course, if anyone thinks of any questions, afterwards, feel free to email myself or Shamar, with them. But again, I want to express my gratitude and thanks to Melissa and Adrian for joining us today and presenting this great information and answering some of these questions. So thanks again for your time today. We really appreciate it. And yes, like I said, Adrian put her email in the chat, and everyone's emails in the slide deck, which we'll share out as well. Before I turn it over, Shamar's going to close this out here with some next steps and reminders. Just curious, folks can put in the chat or even emails afterwards. What is something you heard today that you want to learn more about, that you want to dive in deeper? As I mentioned, we have our peer-to-peer session coming up in January where we have a chance to dive in deeper of some of the topics you heard today. So, take this, time as we're closing out to kind of pop that in the chat, or if you think about it afterwards, email myself or Shamara about it. But now I'm going to turn it over.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks everyone for joining us. Again, we will return in January with our peer-to-peer session on community colleges, roles, and registered apprenticeship on Tuesday, January 23rd, again at 11 a.m. We'll meet in Mark's WebEx, the link that you have here, but we'll also send out a reminder Then we'll have our next webinar, which will be in February on employer outreach and engagement. I saw your comment, Jeanette, so it's coming up. We're going to have that topic very, very soon in the immediate future. So that will be the February topic. Then you'll receive your coach's information. We'll get each focus site a contact. We'll get the contact information for your coach in early January. That will either be Brianne or Cassandra. And don't forget to check out the NJCCC, 3Cs, NJCC website for today's webinar recording, as well as the resources and updates. Don't forget to, if you can, join AIR's webinar on December 7th on apprenticeship models and registered apprenticeship programs and design. And if you have any questions, feel free to email myself or Mark. We're always here to support you. And with that, we thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.
Thank you all. Happy holidays. Happy end of the year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. Great job, Alyssa.
Thank you.